tell me, how do you cope with the fact that it's not a platform item on most of the other parties' agendas this election? How do you feel about that?
Well, I am outraged that this disaster has not been spoken of, especially since Canada does produce so much uranium and exports nuclear technology to other countries. There is a certain obligation that we have. The nuclear industry does have responsibilities to the people, and they have to be answerable. And there are federal jurisdictions that are supposed to be supervising, and they're supposed to be protecting the people. But unfortunately, it looks like their standards and the protocols that they use have not been verified by non-biased sources. So the general attitude is, don't worry, everything will be okay, we're looking into it.
Well, it's been part of the Green Party policy since we were founded that we should shut down Canada's nuclear program, we should shut down all the reactors, we should put a moratorium on uranium mining, and we should stop supporting the export of CANDU reactors, which it's actually, in a way, criminal activity on a certain level if you're talking about the safety of future generations. And if we're to take sound science such as the precautionary principle or risk assessment, I mean, we look at the facts about what's involved with an accident, and it's just not worth the risk. I mean, it's clear, and it's happening right now. We're having a blatant breach of safety happening, and it seems like it's not of concern to Canadians because we're making money from uranium exports. That to me, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, I would think that most Canadians, I think it's been shown in surveys that if asked, most Canadians will say that they are not for nuclear energy as their ideal source of energy. But unfortunately, not being given the information is a way of being misinformed, therefore not having an opinion and not participating and not having a voice heard. So I think that for one, Canadians should be better informed of what is being mined in their country, what is being produced in their country in the nuclear industry, and what is being exported. And then we haven't even mentioned about the link of the nuclear products from nuclear industry being used for weapons, and the risk that there is a proliferation of nuclear weapon use and the risk of nuclear terrorism.
Question from the balcony. Is there a certain amount of nuclear waste that's generated from reactors that ends up in arms trade, such as depleted uranium bombs that were used in Iraq and stuff like that?
Like you say, depleted uranium was used to line the casings of shells, and it was used in Iraq. And this probably led to some of the symptoms that the soldiers had, like the Gulf War syndrome. Plutonium is one of the byproducts, and although the plutonium that comes out of the nuclear power plants cannot be directly used in a weapon, if it's further refined and processed, as is the plan in future nuclear power plant generators to purify the plutonium, then once it's purified, that plutonium is weapon grade material and it can be used to make nuclear weapons.
So basically the daughter products in the fission process, the byproducts created through the fission process of a nuclear plant, and the waste products, the residue, all this could be sold for a sum.
Absolutely.
On the arms market.
Yeah.
And now with this, these being national, multinational corporations, even crown corporations, they have no obligation to disclose these sales to the public, right?
Yeah. What we're also mentioning here is that there could be obviously illegal use of these products. There could be breaches of security. So if the nuclear power plants are not protecting the waste that's on their sites, anybody can get their hands on these products. So again, they will reassure us that all security is being taken care of and that there is no risk to the population, that these products can be used. And
the International Atomic Organization
IAEA, the International Atomic
Yeah.
Energy Association. Yeah.
Is this, they have no actual power to actually scrutinize every reactor on the planet, right?
They can demand to go into a country to make sure that the countries are using nuclear power plants for peaceful purposes, so to speak. And so they have done so in Iran, and they have done so in North Korea. But they don't necessarily do that in the other countries that are nuclear power states.
Do they verify the design, the shell of reactors, or not at all? It's just basically if they're making weapons and they're not supposed to.
What we hear in the media is mostly they're afraid of that link with weapons of mass destruction, as nuclear weapons are called. But they are not the engineers and the experts that go there and look at a reactor's safety piece by piece. That they leave that work to the owners of the power plants.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're assuming that job is being done properly.
Right, there's all these assumptions, like right now in Canada, there's a safety inspection going on of all the reactors, but I'd say it'd be wise to save that money and let's just look at shutting them down and reinvesting
Mm-hmm.
that money in clean renewables. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to get serious here about the nuclear issue. We can't afford it anymore in Canada. It's being subsidized and it's dirty
Mm-hmm.
with the wastes, and the risks, as I said, are just too great. What about, often it's used as an argument that, well, there's also other byproducts that create isotopes used for medicine.
For medicine.
So, what do you have to say about that?
There's other technology that can be used to create isotopes for medical purposes. I don't know the technology well myself, but cyclotron accelerators that can be actually on site in hospitals. They don't use enriched uranium, and they produce the small handful of isotopes that are needed for imaging and other medical uses. But you don't need a nuclear reactor to make these isotopes for us.
Yeah. Now, what about the issue of Gentilly being on a fault line? Now, this is, to me, a no-brainer, and this, excuse me, I'll start again. What about the issue of Gentilly being on a fault line? This seems to me
Yeah.
Do it again from the top.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about the issue of our Gentilly reactor here in Quebec being on a fault line? To me, this seems like a no-brainer that this should be shut down, and
Mhm.
I believe you have a moratorium on, a petition requesting for a moratorium of all reactors on fault lines. Could you tell us a bit about this internationally, what the
Yeah.
Physicians for Global Survival is calling for?
So Physicians for Global Survival is one of the member states of International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War. And here in Canada, we're asking that all nuclear power plants that are known to be on fault lines be closed and until a further assessment of their safety has been undertaken. And this, we're also asking for no further development of nuclear power plants until other questions regarding safety and health issues are clarified, but with top priority being given to those power plants on fault lines.
But like as Brian said, wouldn't this be a no-brainer? Boulevard de la Concorde, I mean, that cement was poured probably around the same time as it was poured to make Gentilly. I mean, we know the construction business in this province. We know that General Electric, was it General Electric that built this reactor?
Yes.
Probably hired and outsourced local contractors or cement builders. At what level did they cheat the cement? We have information that shows design flaws, cracking. You mentioned safety, close down before these things are rendered safe on a fault line. I don't know any cement, even Rome, that could survive a fault line that's going to go through a 9.0 Richter scale magnitude earthquake.
Yeah.
As Brian's saying, wouldn't it just be like, shut them down?
That would be the most obvious thing, and that's why we're making the request for this moratorium. So far, we haven't gotten any positive response.